1937, Alan Frank remarked in an article entitled Music and the Cellulose Nitwit that if before the majority of the people who went to the cinema would say they had barely been aware of the music at all, it would now be completely different. The use and making of film music was radically changing, and the productions that followed demonstrated it very well. Music shifted from being a simple support to the film and started to have a meaning and an interest in itself. Therefore, music could now be imaginative and, if not memorable, remarkable. Well, back then, music was not inaudible but undistracting. You were just meant to pay attention to it. And as a good example, in Gone in the Wind by Victor Fleming in 1939, Mike Steiner composed the score. There were 16 main themes and 2 love themes, one for Ashley and Melanie, which is rather sweet because their love is rather sweet, and another one for Scarlett's passion for Ashley. So we see that films begin to have a sort of catalogue with piece of sinister music, jubilant, catastrophic, solemn, passionate, precisely. And these are themes to accompany the film and give it some depth, but not any kind of depth, because Steiner was asked to use only pre-existing classical music to cut down, let's say, on cost and time, but he said that filming the picture with swatches of classic concert music or popular works would not be as effective as an original score. So there is already a research for imaginative music which would be proper to the film. But what's more is that there are some themes that are really well known and that stand out. You don't only listen to them and feel in the mood in the moment of listening, but you recognize, you remember, you associate a particular ambient with this music. And this is the case with the Tara theme from the O'Hara family plantation. To me, it vehiculates the whole message of the film. It's the love for the hearse, which is vehiculated by the music. And with this example, I think we are indeed really far from the sentence which qualified old film music. Little or no attempt was made to supply music which fitted the changing moods of the action of the picture. But the growth of creating characteristic music for the movie is very well embodied, to me, by the massive creation of musicals after this period. Music becomes the center of the movie. Whether it is sung or not, just instrumental, there are pieces that are more than just only belonging to the movie. Because you might listen to them on their own or know them before you know there was a film. For instance, it's my case for Singing in the Rain. I knew there was a song, Singing in the Rain. I danced on it, I sung it, but I discovered very late that there was a movie by Stanley Donen and Gene Kelly called Singing in the Rain from 1952. And it's exactly the same thing with Footloose, even if it's from 1984. By Herbert Ross. There is a movie, Footloose, but I only saw there was a song by Kenny Loggins called Footloose. In the same vein, but different because you don't really listen to it or dance on it, there are some recognizable music with leitmotif that specifically accompany a film or a saga and that make you recognize it automatically. Of course, I can quote Star Wars because the music composed by John Williams is just proper to Star Wars. If you listen to the Dark Vador theme, you know you are in front of a Star Wars movie. Because this theme might be variated in terms of tempo, register, instruments, or even intensity. You know you are listening to a Star Wars movie. You do not need to open your eyes to know that you are looking at a Star Wars movie. And in a way, it has some similarities with music before this article, before 1937. For instance, in Mickey Go's Show in 1928, music and sound vary in function of the nature of the action, so you can associate a certain type of music to a certain type of action. If you close your eyes, you know if it's rather calm or if it's battle. But the big change concerns the complexity and specificity of the music to the film. It no longer needs to be patently descriptive of the action, it can legitimately have a form of its own, always provided that it perfectly is fused into the form and rhythm of the film. But is it a reason to have to create a music for each movie? Can't like classical or already written music also perfectly fuse into the form and rhythm of the film? If we come back to Singing in the Rain, we should remember that this song has not been written for the film, and it was pre-existing it. It was written in 1929 and used in the movie The Hollywood Review of 1929, more than 2 decades before. But still, it perfectly fits the movie from 1952, as if it was made for it. So there might be a perfect fusion with something already written. And we found a similar thing in A Clockwork Orange by Stanley Kubrick in 1971. The main theme is an electronic arrangement of the music for the funeral of Queen Mary by Purcell, and there are a lot of other classical references, such as Edward Elgar, his two Pomp and Circumstance marches, or even the William Tell Overture by Rossini, and of course the Ninth Symphony by Beethoven, because Alex is a fanatic of Beethoven. And we do not discover the music for the first time in this film, but we are not expected to make a parallel between our own knowledge and what's on the screen. We just have to agree to the fact that it fits the environment. It just works, and it is a perfect fusion between both. And I would say it especially works with the Ninth Symphony, because it plays a role in Alex's mental state. He drives him mad near the end of the film. And by the way, I think we should add that classical music is not the only resource for already written music to put in movies. Like, if we just look at the soundtrack of Matrix by Lana and Lily Wachowski, 1999, it's full of very well-known songs from hard rock, metal bands, such as Rock's Dead by Marilyn Manson, Minefield by The Prodigy, Dragula by Rob Zombie, or My Own Summer by Deftones, Do Have by Rammstein, Wake Up by Rage Against the Machine. It's just a lot of references that structures the thing and that perfectly fuse with the film. But if we go further and explore the sentence, film music is capable of standing on its own feet, we discover that indeed music can be more than just a background or support to the action. As we saw it with Alex's reaction to the Ninth Symphony, music can subvert the action and be the very center of the movie. And I think that's the case when music is diegetic, when you see it in front of you. Like in The Bandwagon from 1953 by Vincente Minnelli. When Tony and Gabby walk, they just walk, they hear music. But when they go through a ball, when they go through music, they feel they are able to dance together, which they couldn't do before, and that was the nut of the action. So through music, through this powerful element, the knot of the action is untied. And it even goes further with Fantasia by Disney in 1940. It's no longer music Mickey Mouse in the action, as we saw with the Mickey Go show, but the action Mickey Mouse in the music, in a way. Because music is first in Fantasia, the animation comes after these segments of classical music, which are conducted by Stokowski. And in addition to having diegetic music, film in the Philadelphia Orchestra playing these segments of music, there is a discourse from Stokowski on music. The three genres they are: narrative, illustrative, and absolute. And of course, absolute is above all of them because it exists for its own sake. And by the way, it is how, to me, horror films work. Because without music, nothing happens. It's not only supplying the action, but making the action. If we come back to Stanley Kubrick with The Shining from 1980, I think it shows it quite well because the images are not shocking. Like, the opening scene is just a car on the road, but the suspense music does everything. It's, I think, this remarkably precise synchronization that makes your heart shift during the whole movie. And it's, looking for the right melody, tone, color, rhythm, tempo, time associations too. And here, to me, music is completely subverting the action. Nevertheless, if we come back to the sentence, the music can legitimately have a form of its own, always provided that it is perfectly fused into the form and rhythm of the film, I think we should say that it is not necessary for the music to be perfectly fused. Sometimes it can question, surprise you, because it precisely does not fit. For instance, in Ravenous by Anthony Bird from 1999, the music has been composed by Damon Albarn from the band Blur. And it was very interesting because of its quirky, inventive loops, instrument and musical structure. And we see it in the run scene. People have to run because they are going to be eaten by a carnivorous person. But music is very fun. And still, even though it may not seem at first perfectly fused into the film, it still seems that the composer's function is to underline harmoniously and subtly the action of the film, to intensify its drama and to assist in making the whole coherent and satisfying, whichever way this is done. The harmony might come from the disharmony sometimes. So, in the end, the change in film music is evident. The evolution of technology has opened the way to new opportunities and fields of exploration, sometimes contradictory from one to another, but always aiming at the same goal, making a movie pleasant and meaningful, whatever be the place of music, whether it is underlining or completely subverting the picture in front of you.